My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of the Scream franchise from worst to best. And this video will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But I was a fan of these movies. Like, they were scary and funny and meta and just really fun movies to watch. And it was a consistent franchise. But then we got the 2022 reboot Legacy sequel. Then we got Scream 6. And now we have Scream 7. And my interest in this franchise is at an all-time low. I know we're going to get Scream 8, Scream 9, Scream 10, but I don't want them. I just want this franchise to end. I couldn't care less right now, and if time has proven anything, it's that Wes Craven is the only man to make a proper Scream movie. Not even Kevin Williamson. So, let's begin by talking about the worst one. And I actually wrestled with myself over the bottom two, going back and forth and back and forth, but I settled on Scream 7 being the worst. Now, I will give this movie some credit. Twisting the Knife is a great song. The scene where McKenna Grace dies is staged incredibly well, and I like that one scene where the dude's head is put on a spike. The scene where Tatum and Sydney are hiding in the walls is actually pretty decent. And I kind of like how Ghostface looks like a ghost in moments. Like, you can just kind of see his mask in the background. But look, the biggest issue with this movie is we're 7 movies in and they're not doing anything new or interesting. This is the safest, most sanitized version of Scream we could have possibly gotten. And it just feels like yet another Scream movie. You know, I like Sidney Prescott, and they give her a husband and kids here, which doesn't really do anything. They didn't really feel like defined characters, and by the end of this movie, I don't want any more Sydney. I like Gail Weathers, but by the end of this movie, I just don't think there's anything new they can do with her. I'm so sick and tired of watching Sydney and Gail run away from Ghostface. It has been played to death at this point, and it's also really weird how Gail just disappears for the entire last act of this movie. In fact, the entire last act is an absolute disaster because I know the town was on curfew, but this town was dead. Like, it felt soulless. It felt empty. And then Sydney's chasing after her daughter, but Gail's car is locked, so instead of asking Gail to unlock it, she just runs as fast as she can, and then she stops to FaceTime her. And then her daughter is, like, going to she has a gun, and Sydney's like, shoot him in the head. And she won't shoot him in the head, which just infuriated me to no end. And then we got the big reveal that Ghostface was Sydney's neighbor and that random doctor. Seriously? Like, actually, when they took off their masks, I was just like, who's this? And then it turns out the motive is to turn Tatum into the next Sydney, and it just felt so half-assed, and I was truly baffled by it. And then we got the whole AI deepfake element, which the movie doesn't even use to make a commentary on anything. It's just there for fan service, and anytime Sydney was FaceTiming Stu, I died of cringe. It was some of the worst, most embarrassing filmmaking I have ever seen in my life. And then David Arquette and Scott Foley and Laurie Metcalf come back for like a 2-second cameo. Why? Like, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I was really hoping that this movie would be crazier. You know, when I heard Matthew Lillard was coming back, I was thinking, yeah, you know, have an undead Stu be Ghostface. You know, it's silly, it's stupid, but it's something different. And nope, it's just handled in the worst way possible. The movie progressively gets worse. The movie looks like shit, and it wasted every supporting character. Joe McHale has nothing to do. Isabel May, I thought, was pretty bland. McKenna Grace is really sweet and charming, but then she dies. Like, between this and Five Nights at Freddy's 2, why are we wasting McKenna Grace in everything? The boyfriend character is so underdeveloped, and I kind of feel like, is the boyfriend the killer or is he not, has been played out so many times at this point. And why was he making an AI video of Stu? Like, was he... I really don't know. The opening goes on for way too long. Oh, but I actually did like the moment when the girl fell on the knife. That was a pretty decent kill. Yeah. You know, there is an element here of Sydney not wanting to pass her trauma on to her daughter, but the execution just isn't there. And ultimately, why I decided this was the worst one is because this movie has nothing to offer. It's instantly forgettable, it's generic as hell, and by the end, I was just like, I'm tired of these movies. I don't want any more Scream movies. So, despite a few positives, I still despised this movie, and that's why it's the worst one. The second worst one is Scream 5. And I just rewatched this movie, and I hated it even more. I just don't like Sam and Tara. Melissa Barrero's performance is so incredibly flat. I don't like Jack Craig. I don't think he really has much range as an actor. Mikey Madison doesn't have enough to work with here. Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown are just really forgettable for me. And I know it's just a really boring movie, and when Gail and Sydney come in, it just feels so unnecessary. Like, they feel shoehorned into the movie, and if you're going to do a reboot, do a reboot. Like, this half-assed attempt just didn't do anything for me. It tries to be about reboots and legacy sequels and toxic fandoms, and it just felt really messy in everything it was trying to say. But the biggest sin of this movie is how they killed off Dewey. I don't like the fact they killed off Dewey, but like, the execution here just turned Dewey into a fucking idiot. He goes back to make sure the ghost face is dead, and then he gets distracted and killed like that. What a giant fuck you to fans of this franchise. What an absolute trash way to kill such a beloved character. And on top of that, you had him and Gail break up again. Just utterly baffling. I really hate this movie. I really do. The one bit of edge I will give it is it came out in 2022, 11 years after the last Scream movie, so it had something to say about elevated horror and the state of horror movies today, so I understand why this movie got made. While Scream 7, it baffles me that it exists at all in the shape it does. So, still a completely abysmal piece of shit, but it's number 6. Number 5, and it's kind of funny that Scream 6 is the third worst one, because my video on it is labeled Scream 6 is the worst of the franchise, but I will give this movie this. It had some interesting ideas. That opening where they reveal to us who the killers are, I watched that and I thought it would be really cool to know the identity, which could be used to make more tension for the rest of the movie. And the idea of copycat killers, like I watched this movie and I hate it. I really do. But I saw potential for other movies in this franchise. I also do like the gas station scene and the scene where they're using the ladder to get across the apartment buildings. But everything else in this movie just sucks. I do not like Sam and Tara. The final reveal is just an absolute disaster. People are getting stabbed like 20 times and nobody seems to die. It's just a really pathetic movie, and it's set in New York, and yet they didn't even utilize the location once. So, yeah. Better than the other two, but still a piece of shit. Okay, and now we get to the ones I actually like. So, the fourth best Scream movie is Scream 3. Now, I really don't care about the backstory of Sydney's mother all too much, and this movie relies heavily on it, and a little bit feels played out here. But, it still has some great moments. That scene of Ghostface chasing Sydney through the Hollywood sets is an all-timer in my point of view. It is such a fun scene, and I do like some of the Scooby-Dooisms of the last act. I like how Ghostface is so clumsy in this movie. It's actually pretty funny. I enjoy the performances here. Like, it's not great, it's heavily flawed, but I still like it enough. The next 3 are the 3 I love. So, movie number 3 is Scream 2. And I like the college setting. I like how this movie talks about sequels. I love the opening scene. I love that scene of Sarah Michelle Gellar getting chased. I love that scene of Sydney in the cop car having to climb over Ghostface. I love the scene of Dewey and Gail in the recording booth. There are so many great moments here that are intense, brutal, fun, and I do like the killer reveals. I actually feel like they're memorable characters, and the performances are fun, and it just felt like a proper continuation of this franchise. Still, not to the same level as the first movie, can drag in moments, maybe could have been tightened up a bit, but I still love this movie, so that's why it's number 3. Oh, and I also really like Gail's character arc here. My second favorite movie in this franchise is Scream 4. And this movie has such a great opening. It's meta on top of meta on top of meta, and I just loved it. I also loved how brutal this movie can be at points. That scene of the bedroom kill might be the nastiest scene of this entire franchise. The scene in the parking garage and the farm, really intense stuff. And This movie also feels ahead of the curve on its commentary on influencers and streaming culture, and it's actually really well done. I also love how this movie explores reboots. I also like how Jill ends up being the villain. Like, I never expected that the first time I watched this movie, and the last act just fully delivered for me. This is a movie where I love the characters, it's super entertaining, it's funny, it's brutal, it just feels like Scream in the best possible way. But my favorite Scream movie is the original, of course. Like, your favorite kinda has to be the original. It just has to be. That opening scene is iconic and one of the greatest scenes in movie history. You know, it's kind of meta, it has a clear love for the whole franchise. It's mildly funny at first, but then it gets really mean really fast. It escalates so effectively. It's terrifying. And when oh shoot, what's her name? Drew Barrymore's character, Casey, when her parents find her, and I think that scene is so devastating. And then it cuts to the title Scream, and you just think to yourself, holy, that was only the opening. And then you just watch the rest of this movie, and it's so self aware and it's so meta in a way that just looks effortless. It's really funny, it's clever, and it has a few really intense moments. I love that one scene of, oh, who is it? Randy watching Halloween, and Ghostface is behind him and he's yelling at the TV. He's behind you, obviously, while Ghostface is behind him. That's just so smart. I love how this movie constantly plays around with your expectations of the boyfriend character. Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, Jamie Kennedy, and of course Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox. Easily the best acted movie here. It's a movie I have watched so many times. It's just a movie I love everything about. It is a whole classic. It is the best slasher movie. And yeah, so that's why it's my favorite. So, long story short, the 3 new movies suck. The 4 old ones are the ones that stand out to me, and it's time for this franchise to end. Yeah. You know, Scream 8 is clearly going to be Sidney and Gail running away from Ghostface again. They're obviously not going to kill these characters. There's not going to be any real meta commentary. And, like, even in the 7th one, her husband and daughter almost die, and I just felt nothing. I just Scream 7's being a box office hit, which I don't know. I'm over it. I really am. If Scream 8 came out and there was like honestly like an undead element or it got really weird and wacky, I'd all be in favor of that, but I just don't think that's happening. So, and yeah. Anyways, what's your ranking of the Scream franchise? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin out.